It started as a peaceful morning on my lakefront ranch. Blue skies, the water glistening just like it had for years, and nothing but the sound of birds and wind through the trees. That peace shattered the moment I saw the bulldozers. Out of nowhere, a crew rolled in, fences went up, and by the end of the day, part of my land had been torn up like it belonged to someone else. Confused, I walked down to the shoreline, and that's when I saw her. Nancy, the HOA president from the new development up the road, standing there with a hard hat and blueprints, pointing and giving orders like she owned the place. Turns out, she believed she did own it, somehow, without a single word to me. Nancy had decided that the edge of my ranch made the perfect view for her new mansion. And not just a regular house. I'm talking about a massive structure, luxury deck, boat dock, private gate, the works. It went up fast, too, like someone was in a hurry. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. My family's land, the same. Property we'd lived on and cared for since before that HOA even existed, was suddenly being treated like part of a gated community. I asked questions, no answers. I showed deeds, they ignored them. The HOA board claimed there was a paperwork mix-up, and suddenly, I was the one getting notices about trespassing on my own land. But I wasn't about to back down, not without a fight, so I did what they didn't expect. I went to court. And let's just say, what happened next flipped the whole thing on its head. Because 5 minutes into that hearing, everything changed. And by the time I walked out, that mansion, her pride and joy, wasn't hers anymore. But before I tell you how I took it all back, let me show you exactly how far she went to take it from me. To understand how things got this far, you have to know a little about the land. This ranch wasn't just some empty lot or leftover piece of real estate. It had been in my family for over 70 years. My grandfather bought it after returning from the war, and every inch of it, especially the lakefront, held memories. Fishing with my dad at sunrise, family cookouts by the water, and even the old barn we fixed up just last year. This place was more than home, it was legacy. But everything changed when the new housing development showed up a few miles down the road. At first, I didn't think much of it. Fancy signs, model homes, open houses with catered food felt like a different world from the quiet life I'd known here. The HOA popped up right after, led by Nancy, who made herself known fast. Sharp suits, always on the phone, always making decisions. And the way she talked, like she already owned the entire valley, I started noticing little things. Property markers, moving. Surveyors showing up unannounced. One day, I found a crew taking photos near the waterline. When I asked who they were with, they just said, the HOA. No explanation. Then came the construction. No warning, no request. Just heavy machinery rolling over the same grass I used to mow with my dad. I tried to talk to Nancy. I really did. I walked up to her one afternoon while she was inspecting the mansion's frame. She didn't even look surprised to see me, just gave me this half smile and said, "It's all been approved." Approved by who? Certainly not me. I checked my records, my boundaries, my deeds. Everything pointed to one clear truth. She had built that mansion on land that wasn't hers. But every time I brought it up, I got the same rehearsed response. Take it up with the HOA. The more I dug, the stranger it got. There were inconsistencies in her paperwork, missing signatures, and surveys that didn't line up with official county records. Someone had either made a serious mistake, or someone was counting on me not to notice, but they underestimated how far I'd go to protect what's mine at this point. I wasn't just dealing with a land dispute. I was dealing with something way bigger. Every time I thought I was getting closer to the truth, another door slammed shut. I requested official documents from the county office, and somehow the most recent property lines had been updated in favor of the development. According to their version of the map, the land Nancy built on technically belonged to the HOA, but older records told a different story. My family's original survey clearly showed that shoreline as part of our parcel. So, how did theirs say otherwise? That's when I started suspecting there was more going on behind the scenes. I spoke to a retired county clerk who'd worked there for decades. She remembered my grandfather and even helped him register the original deed. When I showed her the new documents, she frowned and said, "This doesn't look right. Someone's been playing games with the zoning." That was the first time it hit me. This might not be a mistake. It might have been planned. Meanwhile, things at the ranch kept getting worse. Security guards showed up at the edge of my own property, claiming they were protecting private HOA investment. I couldn't walk near the lake without them calling someone on the radio. My mailbox got flooded with legal-sounding letters from the HOA's lawyer, warning me not to interfere with ongoing construction, and the cherry on top, Nancy actually had the nerve to install a fence across the back pasture, cutting my cattle off from their water access. Her reasoning: the HOA is simply protecting its amenities. Friends and neighbors who'd once backed me started going quiet. A few even admitted they were afraid of getting dragged into it. "It's not just her," one guy told me, in a low voice. "She's connected. People don't say no to her." That's when I realized this wasn't just a fight over land. It was about power, control, and maybe even a network of people helping her pull strings. But no matter how deep it went, I wasn't backing down. Because the more they tried to shut me up, the more I knew something dirty was going on. And I was going to bring it all into the light. By the third month, my peaceful lakefront ranch felt like a war zone. I wasn't sleeping much, constantly watching from my porch as construction trucks rolled by like they owned the place. The mansion was nearly finished, now huge glass walls facing my lake. A private dock already floated out, and a crew installing high-end landscaping on what was clearly still my side of the boundary. Every inch of it felt like a slap in the face, but the real pressure was behind the scenes. My lawyer, a guy named Russell who'd handled land disputes before, warned me that this wasn't going to be a quick fix. He'd never seen paperwork this tangled or this carefully altered. The newer surveys didn't just show different lines. They were filed through a shell company connected to a consulting firm Nancy used for the HOA. The dots started connecting. This wasn't just about mistaken property lines. It was about someone crafting a narrative on paper that made it look like I didn't belong. Still, I kept pushing. I requested a full land audit. That's when things really got strange. The county delayed it. Twice, emails stopped getting returned. And then one morning, Roussel showed up looking pale and said we might have a problem. Someone had filed a counterclaim against me, accusing me of encroaching on their land. They were flipping the story. Nancy even went public. At a community meeting, she stood up in front of dozens of residents and claimed I was harassing her workers, threatening her staff, and refusing to cooperate with local development progress. Her voice was calm, her tone professional, but every word was a lie. I wasn't the crazy neighbor. I was the guy standing between her and what she'd already decided was hers. The last straw came the night I found my front gate padlocked. Not by me. A laminated sign hung from the fence. Restricted access. Private HOA construction zone. I stood there in the dark, staring at it, heart pounding. They weren't just pushing boundaries now. They were trying to erase mine altogether. And that's when I knew it was time to stop playing defense. The night I found that padlock on my gate, I thought things couldn't get worse. But I was wrong, way wrong. The next morning, as I was cutting through the back trail to get around the blocked entrance, I noticed something odd near the lake. New security cameras mounted on poles. Not just aimed at the mansion, but facing toward my side. I wasn't just being watched. I was being monitored. I called Russell in a panic. Before he could say much, his voice dropped, and he told me something I wasn't ready for. "You need to come to the office. There's something you need to see." I drove straight there. And what he showed me changed everything. He'd received a copy of an internal HOA memo, leaked anonymously. It wasn't supposed to reach us. It detailed a plan called Phase 3 shoreline integration, and guess what it included? My entire southern field, the pasture, and the full stretch of lakefront, labeled as future HOA amenity zone. They weren't just building a mansion, they were preparing to absorb my land into their gated community. Their goal wasn't just to take a slice, was to swallow the whole thing. That's when the second twist hit, buried deep in the memo. Under legal codes and zoning terms was a line that made my blood run cold, anticipated quiet claim from deceased property. They believed the original landowner, my grandfather, had never properly passed the deed to my father. Meaning, technically, the title had a legal gray area, and they were planning to exploit it. The problem was, there had been a missing document. One piece of paperwork we never knew had gone unfiled back in the 80s. It didn't change the truth. We owned the land, but it gave them just enough wiggle room to cause chaos in court. Now I wasn't just fighting for land. I was fighting against a legal trap decades in the making. A paper trail that someone, maybe even Nancy, had been quietly preparing to